Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
I'm your host, Alex Jones. We're live. It's Friday, the 26th day already of September 2014. And today's news is particularly important and revealing across the board. There's a lot of news I'm going to be getting into on the police state, on Eric Holder leaving, on a bizarre beheading in Oklahoma, the latest on ISIS, Argentina using drones to root out, quote, wealthy tax evaders. We told you drones have been used and will be used to find out if your swimming pool's green or if you're not paying taxes on all those grapevines. And the establishment's answer is to run around saying none of that exists. It's a conspiracy theory. They treat you like children. We don't. Speaking of the police state, Pentagon set to deliver millions more in military gear to 12 colleges and public schools. MRAPs, giant wheeled tanks. Oh, but nothing's going on in the country. Sound cannons, microwave guns, underground bases, training to suppress political speech, kill switches in the internet, government announcements taking over smartphones and television and cable, radio. If you would have made a movie about this 25 years ago and shown it to people, they'd have said, man, that's a horrible dystopia. But see, there's two parallels. There's still a free society, people that exercise the First Amendment who aren't intimidated, operating, and then you've got the new parallel system of classical, flaming, over-the-top oppression, the opposite of a free society. We know where it leads every time. We've got all that going on. We've got all that unfolding while there's a huge awakening taking place at the same time. So amazing. And then a lot of days I come in here and look at 7, 8 big stacks of news that basically go around to mainstream news, alternative government documents, the tip box, whatever I send in, what's on Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, DrudgeReport.com, WorldNet Daily, and others. And I see a theme emerge every day, a lot of different themes, but a big one is the CIA just declassified a few weeks ago, and we just learned of it yesterday, that they were targeting Gary Webb for his Dark Alliance stories on CIA drug trafficking, and that they did have the LA Times work for him to try to destroy him. And, of course, then he was shot twice in the head by a shotgun, and they said that's quite normal. I mean, they could have me running down the hall and shoot me maybe 10 times with a shotgun and have witnesses, and they'd say, Alex shot himself. I mean, it's pure bull. I will never commit suicide. I just want that on record if they find me with a suicide note and 3 gunshots to the head or arms and legs chopped off and gasoline poured on me. Like Fahmy Malek, remember in Arkancides, Clinton's medical examiner? He would find that people with their arms and legs chopped off in a trash can had committed suicide. In plastic bags, in a trash can. Let me explain something. You can't chop your arms and legs off and then put yourself in a trash bag, put yourself in a trash can, unless you're in a Monty Python movie. It's really a flesh wound. And he's chopped both arms and legs off, and he's hopping around on nubs. I shouldn't even joke about this. It's the age of 2 + 2 = 5, so why not? Maybe you can. And then that integrates in with this story. COINTELPRO revisited. Greenwald exposes with the new NSA documents how they target and harass the press. Believe me, I've experienced it. But it's kind of like mosquitoes biting you at the beach or something. I've gotten used to it. But I mean, reading this is like reading my life. And then Rob Schneider, who I'm a big fan of, came out and said we're in a police state, warned of vaccines. So they ran a CIA, FBI op to getting fired off State Farm. And it's all in the documents. It's right here. We'll be back. We're here. It's Friday. We're broadcasting worldwide, the 26th day of September 2014. All right, let me tell you what is coming up in the stacks. A very heavy news day. Very important and extremely revealing. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, The CIA has declassified 2 weeks ago. We just learned of it. Took that long for the media to pick it up. Managing a Nightmare, the CIA reveals how it watched over the destruction of Gary Webb, working with state-run media like the LA Times to destroy the Pulitzer Prize winner when he exposed CIA drug dealing. And by the way, I interviewed Gary Webb many times. He wanted me to build him a website with all his documents when his new book came out that was going to prove and validate and vindicate him. So they went to his house and shot him twice in the head and called it a suicide. But now it's been declassified, hundreds of pages of documents, how they destroyed him. So great job. What patriots you are. And that integrates in with this story that Kurt Nimmo wrote. COINTELPRO revisited. Greenwald exposes with new NSA documents the NSA agenda to destroy journalists. Joint Threat Research Intelligence Group engages in everything from trolling to honey traps. And if you're a journalist promoting basic Bill of Rights and Constitution, you are to be destroyed. Now, again, this is all completely illegal, completely un-American, just like the warrantless spying, just like saying veterans are the main terror threat. This is an illegitimate criminal offshore banking cartel that's taken over the nation, just like the Vichy French were collaborators with the Nazis. The French just stood down in World War II, folks. They didn't even fight because 90% of their generals, almost all of them, were already paid off by the Nazis. They then got to run the country. That's how Hitler, weeks after the French invasion, could come to France, and the police were there, the French police, controlling the roads for him and giving him security. This is what Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan and the Bank of England and others have done. They run the country. We are occupied. In their own words, Carroll Quigley said that in 1965 when he published Tragedy and Hope, or 1966. Read the book. This is all public. They just think you're too stupid to know it. It is so frustrating to see this. And then that integrates in with Rob Schneider, the popular comedian and movie star, dropped from State Farm ads. Guess why? Schneider had the guts and intelligence to criticize the police state and to say we're turning into a fascist country and to say that vaccines were damaging people. So there was an organized online campaign by you-know-who, the insurance companies and banks and Homeland Security Cyber Command, to lobby for State Farm to drop him. So they've now dropped him to send a message. You sit down and you shut up. As an American, you don't have a right to say we're going fascist, which we publicly are. You don't have a right to say that vaccines need to be investigated. You're fired. And if America is intimidated by this, we will lose everything. We will lose everything. Here's Schneider on CBS News. May 2nd of this year, Rob Schneider tells Chris Stiegel, we are sliding very fast towards fascism. Well, here's an article right here, CBS News. Pentagon set to deliver scores more MRAPs to colleges and high schools. I mean, the NSA is warrantlessly spying on us. They got drones watching farmers. I told you 2 years ago that my dad got a visit by Homeland Security, and they said, we want to enroll you, we want to give you a card, we want to pay you, we want you to go to meetings monthly, and we want you to basically human intelligence, domestically and to spy on your patients. And my dad said, well, who am I going to spy on if I did this? Like terrorists or something? And they said, no, just everybody. We want to know their political views, what they're doing, what they're thinking. And my dad then came to me and he said, are they trying to set me up? And I said, go around and ask other dentists you know and call around to other lead dentists and oral surgeons and medical doctors and see if they're all getting calls or physical visits. And he did it. And most of them have been visited, including at their homes. And most of them were very honored and thought it was patriotic because, you know, Jack Bauer tortures people on Fox TV to keep us safe. And so it's fun to get your little card and go to the meetings like the Clergy Response Team and to sit in the room with the FBI or the CIA and work on continuity of government. So how dare Rob Schneider? How dare him, in his own free time, say he's concerned about vaccines and knows people whose children were fine and got shots and couldn't talk anymore? How dare him be involved as an American and have free speech, period? How dare him? That is so un-American, and I'm glad he's lost that contract. I hope he's run out of the business and fired, maybe even put in prison, because that's what a free country is all about. And how dare him say that it's fascist, that they silence people in America now that say we're turning into a fascist country. Of course, that totally proves we're becoming a fascist country, but just how dare him say 2 + 2 = 4 or 1 + 1 = 2. How dare him? And, of course, I'm being sarcastic. It's like the federal judge in the Dinesh D'Souza filmmaker case. They played a clip of Fox News and a clip of my show. This is in the transcripts of the judge's ruling, where D'Souza said, I'm being set up and being politically persecuted. And the judge said, because you did that, I'm going to give you an 8-month sentence, locked up in one of these little mega prisons. But Orwellian style, they don't call it a prison. So he escaped jail time, the headlines were, total bull. Oh, you're not a political prisoner. We're just going to lock you up for 8 months and make you go to psychological therapy to cure you directly out of the Soviet Union. And 5 years probation. And the judge said, we're not political, but you went and spoke out, so we're going to throw the book at you. And don't worry, MSNBC has come out and said that Eric Holder was never political. That's right. And the Jolly Green Giant isn't green. The Hulk is green, folks. Whenever I said 2 + 2 = 4, my son said, no, I get it. The Hulk is green. And that's what we're faced with. How dare you say that we should look at vaccines as damaging people and look at the studies? How dare you say we're becoming fascist? So the big vaccine makers and others are going to get together and use Facebook and Twitter to hammer his sponsor and to get him kicked off the air. Well, the answer to this is anyone who has State Farm, to do it, to not be lazy, to call State Farm and say, listen, I'm not going to argue with you. I just want, in an email and a call, I'm going to switch my insurance now. I'm not going to be lazy, and I'm going to go off State Farm because State Farm is allowing people to be punished for their clearly legitimate and tasteful political speech, saying America's becoming a fascist system and America needs to look at vaccines. There is a mystery illness all over the United States, and even NBC News admits it's linked to vaccinated kids. I mean, should I be thrown off the air for saying that? So, later in the broadcast, bottom of the hour, I'm going to get into this in detail. Gary Webb confirmed, targeted by a Mockingbird operation, that's government-run media, to be destroyed before they killed him, to stop his book coming out. And I was talking to Freeway Ricky Ross. I was talking to Gary Webb 4 or 5 months before he died. And Gary said, I want to come on your show when this happens. I want you to, he sent me a disc. It was just of news articles and clippings and things. Nothing secret. I want you to build a Dark Alliance website for me. I want you to put these documents up. I said, sure, I'll help you. Well, don't do it till I'm ready. My book proves it all and more, how the big banks run it all. He was on, I mean, the government was listening. They heard the call. How he discovered that the whole thing is run, not just cocaine. We know that from Sibel Edmonds and other NSA whistleblowers, the white slavery, everything. And they shot him twice in the head. And here it all is. The LA Times is being interviewed with the reporters saying, I'm sorry I worked with the CIA to discredit him. I feel bad about it now. Oh, you feel bad about it now? You feel bad? But it's like, oh, the CIA is here. Oh, yes, sir. Let me discredit someone because you said so. Oh, the FBI is here. Yes, you're the good guys. Let me salute you. Oh, bring in the toady jury for the federal trial with 90+% conviction rates who would literally send the 2-year-old to the gas chamber if ordered to. Let's bring in these hand-picked, controlled bunch of perps who've all been blackmailed by the feds, these kept juries. Let's bring in some federal juries to convict whoever we say. By the way, I said a 90+. I think it's a 97% conviction rate in this country. Do you believe in any country? Only places like North Korea have 97% conviction rates, and the U.S. You understand that? Totally illegitimate, totally criminal, totally fraudulent. And now, though, it hadn't eaten the country yet. This foreign takeover hasn't had the big butchering of the hog yet. They're just building up with the vehicles, the armored bases, the training, the preparations, the psychological warfare, the internet kill switches, the takeover grids, and they're just trying to get the military and police in line for the final takeover when they set the nukes off, shoot up the churches and schools, and blame it on the liberty movement. They're just getting ready for the mega false flag. But what blew my dad away is that the Homeland Security person that came to visit him, and my dad called, and the person was, quote, with Homeland Security, was so unprofessional and so ridiculous, kind of like a Barney Fife meets Hitler. In that he didn't even know that David Jones was Alex Jones's father. And see, my dad thought it was some setup or something to get him to go to Homeland Security meetings and that they knew who he was. And I said, no, they're going to make the dog catcher a CIA agent. Because it gives all these weak-minded people incredible confidence to commit all sorts of un-American activities to just give them their little Enfergard card. And they got a lot of well-meaning people involved 12, 13 years ago after 9/11 for the terror threat of al-Qaeda. But we were pointing out who really ran al-Qaeda and allowed them to attack bare minimum. But once they got the pump primed, we were sent the syllabuses. We published them 8, 9 years ago of farming communities. And it was later in the Associated Press where they would get them to a local hotel, all the old farmers and ranchers, and they'd show them al-Qaeda training videos for the first 10 minutes while they had donuts and coffee. Then they'd shift to, is your neighbor growing marijuana? Do they spank their kids? Are they green? Did they build a barn they weren't supposed to? And all these old-timers would go, what in the world? This is some kind of commie meeting. So they get you in. Come on in. We're going to fight al-Qaeda. And you get in there, and they're like, here's the enemy. Veterans, gun owners, returning retired police, you name it. Anybody that might be able to fight a fascist takeover. With socialism at the grassroots. I just got chills. Because here's Reuters today. U.S. Homeland Security moves to tackle climate change and to begin criminal prosecution of people that drop a battery in your yard, that don't recycle. Remember the Audi green police ads 5 years ago at the Super Bowl? Showing people being arrested for their hot tub being too hot? And then I said, that's real. In areas of Europe, they've already banned toasters and barbecue pits and space heaters. And they're already arresting people who have too big a hot tub or have the wrong light bulbs. And then the mayor came out with the head of the PR firm where they made the Audi commercial, the Green Police Audi commercial, in the San Francisco Chronicle and said, this is what we're going to do. We're putting out social messages to prepare you for the new way. See, when I say that ad's real, I knew it was a PR propaganda piece before it was admitted. Not because I'm even smart. I know what these people are up to. I've watched them so long. Austin, New York City, San Francisco are going to raise property taxes and regulations to where a 250-square-foot apartment is going to be $10,000 a month. They're in Community Impact. That's the local Agenda 21 brainwashing progressive free newspaper that sells prosperity through this, saying macro problem, micro solution. Tiny apartment concept gains interest from city officials. So they'll give the developers a free ride on taxes and stuff, and Bloomberg's involved, for these literal prison complexes, 250 square foot. Notice this says smaller than 400 square feet. Yeah, the biggest ones, the penthouses in these facilities, are 350. The smallest are 100. Literal coffins. They're building them downtown right now. Big ones. And listen, it's not so you've got more discretionary income. If you read the actuaries on all this, they're on record saying that way they get more taxes. It's so you live on less, so they get more. Actual highway checkpoints, green police checkpoints, are now being set up in Austin. 4 or 5 years ago, they had it as the ad. The green police, we're coming after you. In fact, let's go out to break with the green police. It's the only jobs in America. The #1 tuitions now being paid for, scholarships, are spying on people. And you're like, but where are the terrorists? No. It's a criminal takeover. They're coming after everybody. Nazi Germany? Heard of that before? Soviet Russia? This is it. We got cancer, folks. It's real. It's a horrible case. Only freaking out and breaking with these people will stop it. Let's go out to break with the green police ad. Restart it. It's unbelievable. Or we can come back after break with the green police ad for folks. We can just play the whole thing. They are going to arrest you. They are coming for you, and they mean it. And they own you. They believe your kids belong to them. They're going to forcibly inoculate you. They are the terror force. They are the plague. They are totalitarian scum. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Stay with us. You have been warned. I have been warning you. It will all manifest. I know the enemy.
We're on the march.
That's what the establishment's doing, is building up its criminal network, its armored vehicles, its surveillance, its drones, its human spies everywhere, converting America into the greatest totalitarian spy force of progressive control freaks running around tattling on everyone the world has ever seen. And by the way, I'm not trying to scare people here. I'm trying to get you to realize what's already happening, what's already going on. A total conversion to poverty and austerity. A total conversion to tyranny, while the elites are exempt from every stinking piece of it. We've studied East Germany and the Stasi. We've studied the Soviets. We've studied the Gestapo. We've studied other totalitarian systems. Nothing has been this ambitious. This has got to be, let's not exaggerate. Let's not exaggerate. 100 times worse than anything we've ever seen. The level of spying, the level of control, the level of actual minions and informants and agents there to lie, there to set up, there to destroy the virtuous, attack the honorable, pull down the good, as O'Brien does in 1984. A society that's more ugly, more degenerate, trampling and being trampled upon, Winston. A boot stomping on a human face forever. And I think about Rob Schneider tells Chris Stigall at CBS News, we are sliding very fast towards fascism. Schneider struck an ominous tone. He said, democracies don't end well. We are sliding towards fascism. It's an ugly kind of thing, the kind of mob mentality that we have to be careful of, he said. Well, you know where that came from? Plato and the Republic, written 2,400 years ago. It's so funny, this article's out today. Well, I'm covering Schneider being canned from an insurance company spokesman today because he said this earlier in the year. But look at what the main graphic is on Infowars.com, put up there by Kurt Nimmo. He does a daily graphic. Tyranny naturally arises out of democracy, Plato. We've got a bunch of Nazi flags marching because it was democracy that brought them to power. Rob Schneider said 2 + 2 = 4. He said what is reasoned, intellectual, and intelligent. But let me tell you what's intelligent now. What's intellectual? Supporting total fascism, calling yourself liberal, wearing socks that don't match and having a beard, and walking around in an effeminate way with your hands out at your side, going, break up families, guns are bad, men are bad, I love black uniforms, I love the choppers, I love the checkpoints, I love the torture, I love Obama, I love it, I love it. I mean, that you people are sick. You're not Nazis in black uniforms that'll actually do the killing yourselves, even though they were evil. You just sit back and live in some fantasy delusional world. Get rid of Rob Schneider. Get him fired. He, in amongst the campaigns to get him to lose his sponsorship, was the fact that he said America's becoming fascist. They convict themselves by their very words, even if you disagreed with what Schneider was saying. You shouldn't boycott him unless he's calling for taking someone's liberty. When Rosie O'Donnell called for banning the Second Amendment, I called and launched the boycott that others picked up on of Kmart, and she lost her sponsorship and shut her mouth about taking my rights. I was not trying to stop her free speech. I was showing her there'd be hell to pay. Then Rosie O'Donnell became a listener, and when she spoke out for 9/11, need to be investigated, I respected that. When they tried to boycott her, I fought against the boycott. So you have to gauge these. It's not that a boycott's good or always bad. It's that if someone's trying to take your private property, take your children, take your guns, take your right to religion or not to be religious, if someone's trying to shut people down for their speech or their rights, then you boycott them. I have both boycotted Rosie and I have both supported Rosie. When she wanted to take my guns and your guns, I viciously went up against her and defeated her with your help. One of the first big successful things we did back in like 1999, 2000. And then when they were trying to boycott her for saying, hey, I live in New York, and I heard them say they blew up Building 7 and it needs to be investigated. And the reason I know Rosie O'Donnell's a listener is I'll just leave it at that. She is a listener. She did watch my films on 9/11 and was still angry at me that I had boycotted her on the gun issue, but said she had respect for me on the September 11th issue so we could agree to disagree. But I don't mean to go back and tell a story I've never told before. It's just that that's how I try to gauge things. It doesn't mean I always have the answers. But Rob Schneider has come out and said we're turning into fascism, that democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner, and that there's clearly something happening with these vaccines. We need to investigate them. And so there was an organized campaign to run him off the air to try to intimidate everybody else so the big corporations and government can do whatever they want, whenever they want. The answer is, just like I said with the NFL, and their ratings have been consistently down because the whole Second Amendment community is sick of it. When they got rid of Hank Williams Jr., who was very popular because of his free speech, the answer is boycott the NFL. When they promote gun control, victim disarmament, boycott them. When they promote Obamacare, boycott them. And people are boycotting them. You try to take our rights, we boycott you, we cost you money. And they've got their dirty trick campaigns behind the scenes against me, but that's to shut me down so I can't promote liberty. You see the difference? Rob Schneider dropped from State Farm ads. Guess why? State Farm Insurance will no longer run the television advertisement starring Rob Schneider because of the actor's anti-vaccination views. The move comes after a social media campaign called for Schneider to be dropped as a spokesman. Phil Supple, the insurance company's director of public affairs, told PR Week that Schneider's ad has unintentionally been used as a platform discussion unrelated to products and services we provide. He said, with that, we are working to remove the ad from the rotation at this time. Well, it's our right to drop State Farm. And if you got State Farm, folks, it's time to go get a local insurance company. Probably get a better deal anyways. Drop them. Nothing against State Farm. But we got to defend Schneider because his speech is so American. His speech is so on target. It's the great example of someone trying to help people. Tyranny naturally arises out of democracy. If you have a pure democracy, 51% can vote to enslave the other 49. Or an elite can propagandize 51%, especially when they're on welfare. And in some counties, upwards of 80% of Americans. In fact, I have a National Geographic issue came out a few months ago about food deserts. And I was looking at county-by-county graphs in the U.S. on a big fold-out map just last night. I was thinking about, wow, I live in a country where in some areas, 80% of the people are on food stamps, and the national average is 1/3. Because there's like 50 million on one type and another 50-something million on another. But it's over 100 million. Yeah, there it is. Food, National Geographic. Why people are malnourished in the richest country on earth. And if you flip through it, it'll show the graphic. There it is. Wow, amazing. Good job, guys. They found it like in 5 seconds without me telling them to. And if you look at the graph down below it, it shows the areas that are in red or in brown, dark brown, that's upwards of 80% on food stamps. And you notice it's the border areas, the South, New York, L.A., places like that. Scroll down and it'll actually show the, what's that called? The area that tells you what the statistics are. The fact box, I don't know. Scroll down some more. They may not have it in the online issue. A little bit different, but how do you conquer America? You get half the population on welfare, and it's game over. And even if Mitt Romney had his own problems, he got in trouble when he made the truthful statement of 2 + 2 = 4, when he said 47+% who were on welfare at that time. It's now over half in just a few years. Now 51% last time I saw. Now that they've done that, now that they've been able to bring that into fruition and get over 50%, it's pretty much game over unless we, the producers, have an Atlas shrug and stop complying. It's now reaching that point where we don't have anything else to do because our money, our energy, our labor will be used to enslave us. And whether it's Goldman Sachs or whether it's Wells Fargo tax exempt or Google or General Electric, or the 100 million people on welfare, plus. And the government workers, we have nothing to defend ourselves from them. They will always just vote for more. They will always demand more. They will always hate whoever's produced anything. The ultra-rich teamed up with the giant masses of people that are third, fourth, fifth generation welfare who have no idea the three branches of government, no idea. And then you got corporations teamed up to lobby and to organize against a comedian that dare say, we're becoming a totalitarian state, we're becoming a fascist state. Democracies never end good because the majority can vote itself to make the minority slaves. And that's now where we are as a country and as a republic. So all this other news is just window dressing until we realize just how dire the straits are. Now, we've talked about campaigns to destroy Rob Schneider, and I am calling for a national boycott until they reinstate him. Two can play at that game. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. This is a two-way street. That gun kicks as hard as it shoots. See, all you people that know about tyranny and know about evil and know about the knowledge of good and evil and know how to manipulate and know how to do bad things, do you understand that it always comes back on you many-fold? And that whatever you do to people that's wicked ends up coming back on you and your children? And so you think you're getting away with all of this stuff because you don't follow God's rules. You don't follow the rules written on your heart. That you don't follow your conscience. You don't follow your basic innate human programming. You give in to what's easier. You think you're winning doing this. No, you're not. And people like Rob Schneider are heroes. People like Rob Schneider, who isn't stupid, he's not a coward, ladies and gentlemen. He's willing to put it all on the line to warn people, because if he doesn't warn people, he's not alive anymore. I'll guarantee you he's not bummed out losing this contract. We're going to try to get him on the show. I guarantee you that he is happy with what he's done and happy with being censored. I've been fired. I've been attacked. I've been physically gone after. I've been demonized. I've been lied about. My family has. And you know what? It makes me work harder. It makes me commit that much more. Just like Wolfgang Halbig yesterday said when they came to his house and threatened him and his family repeatedly to stop investigating Sandy Hook being a false flag. He said, I'm never going to stop. I'm going to spend all the money I got to fight these people. They shouldn't have come to my house. They shouldn't have threatened me. And it's not that people like Halbig are looking for a fight, but there comes a point where you know it's evil. You know it's wrong. You're cornered, and you know what? You're going to start swinging. And that's what's happening in this country, and they know who's going to start swinging when the real tyranny comes. The veterans, retired police officers, patriots, conservatives, libertarians, and real Christians, not state-run churches. They know you're not going to take the chip. They know you're not going to let them teach your kid Heather has two mommies. They know you're going to bitter cling, and so they're coming for us. The only thing holding them back is the fact that they know that we really are, of all the minorities, the largest minority, liberty lovers, and growing. And a lot of their own people are whistleblowing. And on the inside, as bad as the system is, people on the inside have already had a chance to see that it's just as bad as I'm saying. They know what time it is. And that's why in the federal government, in the military, and in the police ranks, local or federal, are the most awake group. They know they're being blackmailed and set up. They know they're being surveilled. They know they got into something corrupt. They're freaked out. And let me tell you what keeps the system asleep at night is they know people in the ATF leaked Fast and Furious who didn't want to lose their soul. They know people in the FBI are leaking information to people in the Pentagon. So they pick somebody like Chelsea Manning, who they think will discredit the whole movement. Look at this article out of firstlook.org. This is confirmed. Managing a nightmare, the CIA reveals how it watched over the destruction of Gary Webb. I knew Gary Webb. He wanted me to work for him, basically. Months before he died, he called me and he said, I want you to publish these documents that are already public, but prove what's going to be in my book so they're online. Well, they didn't let him publish his second book proving everything. They blew his head off, shot him twice in the head. Now, that said, the CIA has declassified right as the new movie gets ready to come out with Jeremy Renner. We can scroll through that article for folks. And they admit in here the LA Times and others worked to destroy Gary Webb, knowing what he said was the truth. In his Dark Alliance series that won the Pulitzer Prize. And the CIA and others threatened the San Jose Mercury News till they even came out and repudiated Webb when nothing he said had been disproven. I've interviewed Freeway Ricky Ross and others who were there during the trials when Webb was covering it, when they would death threat Webb in the hall. They broke in his house the week before they killed him. When you see the movie, they'll have him committing suicide. But they even, see, now the CIA wants you to know, yeah, we target journalists. Does this sound like an American organization? No, it's not. It works for the EU and foreign banks. We have a very special guest, Doug Casey, that joins us in the next hour. An icon of the libertarian movement that's never been on the show. So that's coming up. And what I'll do is at the start of the next hour, I will do a quick, focused, detailed report on COINTELPRO Revisited. Greenwald exposes NSA agenda to destroy journalists. And you look at how they're trying to destroy Rob Schneider for saying we're becoming a fascist state. You look at how they're trying to destroy the journalists and did, like Gary Webb, and the CIA's declassified that because they want you to know they're very proud of their work. Then you have Kurt Nemo's article where Glenn Greenwald has the new NSA documents and has a story showing how NSA and government agents work to manipulate, deceive, and destroy. That's close quote, to deceive and destroy the reputations of journalists. Over the last several weeks, I worked with NBC News to publish a series of articles about dirty trick tactics used by GHQ's unit in England. And then he goes into how it's also happening in the U.S. And then when I read this list of things, in addition to cyber and denial of service attacks, the strategies include online covert action, like false flags. This happens constantly where people send handwritten letters or emails or fake faxes to police departments in my name saying horrible things, or calling people spoofing different office phone numbers just as dirty tricks. In fact, it's happened so much, I know they have a designation in the police computers around here just to basically ignore it. But this is the type of stuff the government's doing. In addition to internet-based operations, GCHQ operations, credential harvest, a technique used by CIA under Mockingbird program, and also engages in close access technical operations, which includes spying on telephone calls, surveilling hotel computers, following people, harassing them, injecting all sorts of false material into the internet in order to destroy the reputation of its target. Other ones include sexual honey traps, changing of photos, network sites. Yeah, they'll call your wife up and tell them you're cheating on them over and over again till they believe it. Author and researcher Brian Glick noted, war at home, covert action against U.S. activists and what we can do about it. I'm going to get him on the show. But this is what they did to Gary Webb, who was never discredited. They just said he's discredited. Just like Dr. Andrew Wakefield, a bunch of studies, it turned out, had been done before him showing the same thing by the British government, and studies have come out after, that vaccines are attacking the intestinal flora of children. It was all verified. They just said he'd been discredited when he hadn't. Oh, Alex was discredited with Piers Morgan. Yeah, that's why he lost his job over it. Oh, my gosh, you know. Ted Cruz has been discredited criticizing Obamacare. That's why his poll numbers went up massively. They just spin reality, ladies and gentlemen. The good news is it's not working anymore. When they attack us, that gives us instant credibility. I told Politico that when they were attacking Rand Paul, and they called me. And they had folks dressed up like Klan members at his events. They were Democratic operatives, you name it. And I said, don't you get it? You're so discredited, only endorsing him would hurt him. But you just can't understand you're out of bullets. When they attack you in the wrong, it empowers you. Now, smarter people in the government know that. But, I mean, I want to say to the government, you're like a mad beast now, like Nixon said, out of control. Somebody needs to put the brakes to you. It's out of control. Briefly, DNA Force is back in stock for a limited time. We won't get more for a while. A very limited amount came in, and I believe it will sell out probably by tomorrow, if not this evening. It is, from our research, the most powerful, across-the-board supercharger. Well, just, you know what, I'm not going to get into all the technicals. It's amazing, and your purchase supports the broadcast. It's a true nutraceutical. InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139.
GCN.
InfoWarsLife.com. I haven't even gotten to any of the news yet. What's on InfoWars.com, PrisonPlanet.com. I haven't even gotten into the weird beheading up in Oklahoma. I haven't gotten into a lot of it yet. I mainly just got dumbfounded by the fact that what I already knew has been openly declassified by the CIA, that they are just targeting and savaging reporters and people who expose real corruption. And that ties into a new Glenn Greenwald NSA documents coming out about targeting and harassment of the press, with even the AP sending letters a few weeks ago and the different association of journalists saying, stop the police state, stop harassing reporters. This is scary. Could it be that even the establishment wonks who've gone along with this, the LA Times is now apologizing for working with the CIA to destroy Gary Webb? Could it be tyranny isn't so fun? Could it be you've already gotten into the water and now you realize there's piranha? Could it be that tyranny isn't as tough and sexy as you thought it was? Could it be that it stinks and it's dark and it smells really bad and feels bad and you're kind of wanting to get out of there? Good. Because it's never too late to turn back. Even once you get into a deep tyranny, it's okay to get your soul back and to go ahead and get your soul pointed at God. That's all I'm saying here, is I know where my soul's pointed. I'm not signing on to oppressing innocents. I'm not signing on to bullying people. I'm not signing, and I will go after bullies, though. And they always squeal, it's bullying once you get them down. I love that line from Tuco in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where he says, oh, have fun beating me up right now, big man, but if I ever get you down, you ain't ever getting back up. I'm going to put the boots to you. That's an old saying. Steve Watson put that in one of his headlines. I think I'm going to change it, though, because folks don't know. That's an old English saying. Holder critics lay the boots in. The least faithful to the Constitution of any AG. We're going to go over an article, The Crimes of Eric Holder today. Pennsylvania woman blamed for her own rape and state response to lawsuit. Wait till you hear this. Republican congressman urged military officers to rebel against Obama. Huge news. Obama pays glowing tribute to tearful departing Attorney General Eric Holder as a civil rights champion. U.S. Homeland Security moves to tackle climate change risk. Oh, yeah. Thought it was for al-Qaeda terrorists. Oh, the ones you armed and renamed 4 or 5 times to confuse the public. But don't worry, we're all safe. Public schools across the country and now colleges, secondary schools, are now getting the MRAP armored vehicles and everything. I guess when everything collapses and they close the schools down, I guess the professors and folks will just live there on the compounds. I mean, government is acting like there won't be a country because they plan to start a civil war and implode the nation. And they call it treason if you're not for imploding the country and shutting off the power plants and opening the borders up and violating all the laws. Because in a country run by tyrants, being a patriot is treason. In a world of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. We will open the phones up, too, in the third hour today. And then we'll be back this Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. I had some stuff come up last weekend and couldn't spend time with my son on his birthday. So this Sunday, I'll not be hosting the broadcast myself. Paul Watson, all the way from Her Britannic Majesty's Kingdom, London, will be joining us, and we'll be hosting the show Sunday live, 4 to 6 p.m. So we'll have my my limey friend. I'm being politically incorrect on purpose to teach people that it's okay to be politically correct. I'm a limey, so I can say it. Definitions are important, and we live under FEMA Region 6 here in Texas. FEMA is openly dissolving the old republic. They're dissolving the states. The federal government itself is run by a collection of offshore banks that are anti-free market. They are now putting in currency controls and capital controls to keep Americans from leaving the country. Record numbers of people are fleeing the United States. You've got Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, General Electric, Berkshire Hathaway, Google that pay little or no taxes. I think Google was on the high end at 3%. And my problem is they then lobby at Berkshire Hathaway and Goldman Sachs on record for gun control, for police state, and for higher taxes on the working poor, the middle class, and the nouveau riche. And that's a fact. It's the ultra-rich, just like I read the 1972 book by Gary Johnson, None Dare Call a Conspiracy. That book is Veritas. It's the ultra-rich who are anti-free market, monopoly capitalist, waging war against the true new wealth, the engine, the prosperity, and brainwashing the unwashed masses to believe that welfare is the answer, with about 100 million people on some form of food assistance, 50 million on food stamps, 100 million total on 101 million on some form of welfare, another 60, 70 million on government jobs or government contracts. Well, it's game over. It's over 50% now dependent on the system, and the system can decide winners and losers. That's called tyranny. Now, there is good news. Congress has a 7% approval rating in Gallup. Eric Holder's having to step down. Critics are saying he's the least faithful to the Constitution ever. A lot of young people are waking up to the ideas of liberty. We're going to cover the waterfront today. 41+ million illegal immigrants in the United States. National Review's reporting. And my issue with the immigrants is I'm a libertarian. I'd be for open borders, except I can't go to Mexico and get free welfare or have a baby. So this is a giant suction to bring people here to this country. I want to cover the waterfront in the next 50 minutes or so with a gentleman's who's several of his books I've read, his newsletters I've read. Doug Casey. You can go to Wikipedia and read his bio if you want. He wrote The International Man, that was an international bestseller, #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, was it 12 weeks or longer running? And he's gone and lived all over the world. Rhodesia, that's now no longer Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. He's got a project that he's built down in South America he's going to talk about. But this is one of the original libertarian/anarchic capitalists. And I had a lot of fun. I've spoken at Stansbury this year, and I spoke at Casey Research last Saturday to a capacity hall at the Hyatt in San Antonio. And I wanted to just he's an icon if you're Ron Paul or if you're Von Mies or you're Lew Rockwell. For the intellectuals of the Liberty Movement, everybody knows who he is. For a lot of new listeners, we're on stations all over the country, you're like, who's Doug Casey? Well, he heads up Casey Research, and there's so many websites to give out. We'll ask him which one's probably best. But he was asking, what do I want to cover? And I asked him, I said, well, what do you want to cover? And he said, the need to diversify internationally, diversifying your assets as well as diversifying your person, why you should be living abroad, unless you're the captain going down the ship like me, and the economy and how the government is clamping down on our financial freedoms. Yeah, they just had a big university study last week or 2 weeks ago that we're 36th worldwide for business and freedom. That's behind every industrialized nation and then a whole group of third world countries. The punitization of energy and Russia and Putin and how he has been working for 10 years to corner the energy market. Putin's true motivation behind the Ukraine and what he thinks Putin's endgame is. So we're joined by Doug Casey. Doug, you got a long bio, but for folks that don't know who you are, even though you're not an arrogant person, spend a few minutes telling folks about Doug Casey, and then where do you want to start first?
Well, Alex, pleasure to be here. Thank you. To introduce myself, I guess my first book came on the scene in 1978. It was called The International Man, How to Make the Most of Your Personal Freedom and Financial Opportunity Around the World. And that book sold very well internationally, but it was the largest-selling book in the history of Rhodesia, which is a record which is never going to be beaten since Rhodesia doesn't exist anymore. At the time, there were 250,000 Europeans, or people of European background and descent living in Rhodesia. Now there are probably about 2,000, maybe. Anyway, my second book was Crisis Investing, and that was #1 on the New York Times list for 18 weeks. It was on the list for 39 weeks. And it came out in 1979, and it talked about your profits and opportunities in the coming Great Depression. And we almost had that depression back in the early 80s, when you'll recall interest rates, even on government paper, was 15, 16%. So I've been doing this since then. I've been to 145 countries. I've lived in 10. And that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
So you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. And I want to talk to you about the currency controls, the capital controls. What you warned about back in 1979 in some place like Rhodesia, where they have 1,000,000% inflation and total hellhole now from a Garden of Eden, basically, according to folks I know that have lived there compared to what it is now. We can see the writing on the wall for America because you've seen this syndrome play out in country after country.
Well, what's happening is that the U.S. government, since the Greater Depression actually started in 2008, has created trillions of new currency units, trillions of new U.S. dollars. And right now, they're basically sitting in the big banks and insurance companies where they went to bail them out as they were failing back in 2007, 2008. But at some point, they're going to come out into the economy in force. Right now, the stock market and the bond markets are at all-time highs because of those newly created dollars. And people think that's a good thing. But it's going to come down to a retail level where the things that you need to live on start exploding upwards in price. And that's going to become a real problem, Alex, because when the currency loses value, you're disincentivized to save. And saving is how you become wealthy. And, of course, you could say this is why the U.S. as a whole is becoming poorer, and the middle class is being wiped out.
Again, once they also start accelerating spending, that only throws fuel on the fire. What is your gut? Kind of go back to your speech at Casey Research this last Saturday. Where does your gut tell you this country's going? We know it's going to collapse. That's what all the armored vehicles and martial law preparations are for. But I see this as a global meltdown that's coming. When do you think it's coming? Will it come slowly or quickly?
Well, I think we're on the edge of the precipice right now. And I say that with fear and trepidation because most of the 300 million people in this country want to produce more than they consume and set aside the difference. They understand intuitively that that's how you keep the wolf from the door. But that said, I think we're in very, very big trouble at this point. Actually, when we go back historically, I'd say that the United States peaked back in the mid-50s. That's when we were in relative terms much, much more powerful than all the rest of the world put together. The value of our stock and bond markets were 3 or 4 times the rest of the world put together. We produced 90% of the world's cars, 90% of the world's airplanes. All of this has changed. We've come a long way from producing the 1959 Cadillac convertible to making little econoboxes. That's all people can afford to drive.
It was all swindled away.
It has been. It's all we have is receipts for the financing of the warfare state and the welfare state. Two things that are antithetical to the idea of America. In fact, Alex, I don't even say I live in America anymore because America was a fantastic idea, a unique idea, a wonderful idea. But it's vanished, and now we just live in the United States, which is really just another of 200 other nation-states that cover the face of the globe like a skin cancer at this point. And there's really not much difference between the U.S. and other countries, sad to say. In fact, we're less free than a lot of other countries.
And all the university studies show that we're a police state, and it's getting worse fast. The establishment obviously thinks that they're going to convert into a pure tyranny as if that's some desirable destination.
Well, that's right, and it's why I recommend that people diversify themselves internationally and diversify politically, because your biggest danger today, as big as the economic and financial dangers are, and they're huge, your biggest danger is a political danger, what the state can do for you, do to you. So it's important that you diversify so that all your assets aren't under the control of your own government, and you yourself physically have a crib that you can go to if this place turns into 1933 in Germany, or 1917 in Russia, or 1973 in Vietnam, or 1959 in Cuba. This happens all over the world, in all countries across space.
And we know the Cloward and Piven socialists are on record saying, yeah, we engineered it, and when it comes down, we're going to sell total socialism as the answer. Can you imagine the hellhole America will be, Doug? Well,
actually, the average American at this point no longer believes in capitalism and free markets and free speech. He really believes in bread and circuses.
That's right. Doug, stay there. I want to come back to you and ask how you were such a visionary. What woke you up so early? We're talking to the Trailblazer. Stay with us. The Ministry of Defense, the Department of Defense, all of them in the last 5 years have put out reports saying collapse is inevitable. The question is when. There's over 2 quadrillion in derivatives out there. That's even in the Wall Street Journal. For folks that don't know, that's probably 100 times all the real assets in the world. We're going the way of Rhodesia, where you lived. We're going the way of the Weimar Republic, undoubtedly. And you say we're on the precipice. Government is running around like fire ants that have been disturbed. gearing up for what it looks like the apocalypse or something. They are setting up the new currency and capital controls. They tripled the price to renounce your U.S. citizenship. How did you, way back in 1978, with the International Man, envision all of this? I mean, what woke up Doug Casey?
Well, at some point, I figured out that the best survival strategy for a human being is not to act like a plant. And I'm afraid that most people, especially most Americans, because we've lived in a charmed life. We've lived a charmed life. It's like we've won the cosmic lottery being born in the United States during the 20th century. But things change. And as a survival strategy, you want to be air mobile. You want to be able to go anywhere and do anything to take advantage of opportunities wherever they may be. But most people have kind of a medieval peasant mindset where they're afraid of anything that's over the next valley because perhaps the media told them that there might be dragons, so they should be afraid. So I've always had an expansive, outward-looking approach to making the world my oyster. So it's a psychological attitude, first and foremost, Alex.
You've lived in 10 countries, and I want to spend some more time on that coming up. And you've got a project, I know, going on in South America right now that I want to see sometime. But looking specifically at your prognosis as a forecaster economically, why you say we're on the precipice?
Well, it's because in the real world, actions have consequences. Cause has effect. And from being a free market society when this country started and being a beacon for the rest of the world for free minds and free markets, over time we've become encrusted with this barnacle infestation of regulatory agencies that stop things from happening and impose huge costs on anything that does happen. So that at this point, we're now an extremely highly regulated, extremely highly taxed society that's about to suffer from catastrophic inflation, which is going to wipe out people's savings. So a collapse, I'm sad to say, is inevitable. Now, life will go on. I've been in countries when they've collapsed, and the real wealth, or a lot of it, still exists. It just changes ownership, but it's very unpleasant and inconvenient and dangerous for the people that are there while it's happening.
And now we see Homeland Security announcing that they're going to be tackling climate criminals and that they're going to be watching the Tea Party. Why do you think the Homeland Security's made the libertarian movement or anarchic capitalist the number one enemy?
Well, that is interesting because, Republicans say they believe in the free market, but that's a lie. They just don't believe in social freedom. And Democrats say they believe in social freedom, but that's a lie. But they definitely don't believe in economic freedom. So why do these people hate the libertarians who believe in both economic and social freedom? Well, I guess it's because we really don't believe that the government serves very much of a useful purpose, unlike the Republicans and the Democrats. So I think that's why they really hate the libertarians. But you mentioned climate change before. I've been an amateur geologist for most of my life. When I was a kid, first thing I wanted to be was a paleontologist, dinosaurs, and that led me to being wanting to be a geologist. I read everything about that.
Hold on, I want to get your take, Doug. Long segment coming up. Doug Casey, CaseyResearch.com, amazing website. Everybody should check it out for all the intel and reports and on where he thinks the safest, best places are to leave if you are exiting the former United States, the former America, now a subsidiary of Goldman Sachs. So stay with us. We're going to talk to Doug Casey straight ahead. I'm Alex Jones. My friends, we are broadcasting worldwide. We'll be back live this Sunday 4 to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And guess who's going to be here, speaking of the International Man for the next 2 weeks? One of the main editors and main researchers and just incredible journalist, Paul Joseph Watson, is going to be touching down in Austin, Texas on direct flight from the UK right into Austin, Texas in the next 2 hours. So Paul Watson will be with us this Sunday, and he's going to be co-hosting some with yours truly here next week. We're going back to the author of The International Man and so many other New York Times bestsellers, and that's Doug Casey. Before I go any further, we do not fund ourselves, as you know, with government stimulus money like MSNBC or $450 million of taxpayer money like NPR and Rockefeller grants every year. I go out and find super high-quality products and try to sell them at the lowest price where we make enough profit to have the reporters, the news writers, the investigative journalists, the equipment, the crew, the video people, the radio producers, everything. That's what we do. And we fund ourselves with super high-quality organic coffee from the high mountains of Mexico and Chiapas. We fund ourselves with Survival Shield, the proprietary super iodine, X2. With the lung cleanse, with the oxy powder that flushes out your guts, with super female vitality, with the fluoride shield, chelating, detoxifier, all of it, AcuPower for the eyes. We go to the top formulators and say we want over-the-top, super organic, highest quality, joke level. By joke level, we go to major manufacturers, major laboratories, some of the biggest in the country. Say in the case of AcuPower. And we say, this is what we want. And they go, wow, that's an incredible formula. No one's ever had one that strong and this concentrated for anywhere near this price. Let me just give you an example. Most major groups, even quote, have quality stuff. Let's say it's $50, $100 for a bottle. It's got $10 of product in it. Something's $30, it's got $2 of product in it. If we got something that's, say, $40, it's got $20 of product in it. If something's $130 like DNA Force, one ingredient's $40 of it in each bottle. That's one of ingredient of a whole bunch. That's the kind of stuff we've got in DNA Force and the rest of it. Go read about it, find out about what it does to the cells, to the nerves, the regeneration, all of it. This is the patented, proven stuff with an over-the-top formula nutraceutical. Similar concoctions are $300 to $600. Ours is $130. It's a flagship product. It's very expensive. But even at the opening price, when it first came out, it sold out in 4 hours. We got it a little bit more this time. It's set to sell out by tomorrow, and that's being conservative, maybe even tonight. But we do get more in a few weeks, DNA Force. And your purchase, it's a big bottle, jam-packed with a whole bunch of the caplets, funds this operation, the very tip of the spear. So we've got colloidal silver for $19.95, super high quality. It's the same laboratory that produces it for Whole Foods, produces it for us, and ours is less than theirs. So just to give you an example, just the highest quality, lowest price. That's how I want to dominate the market and really win-win-win. Fund our operation, give you super high-quality products that I personally use, my family uses, and then you'll reorder because it's so good. So I want to thank you all for your support, InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139. And we are about to sell out of Lung Cleanse and Silver Bullet yet again. And we don't just say that as a promotional thing. That's a great way to sell something. It's artificial scarcity. You see the stuff sell out for months all the time. So Silver Bullet, Lung Cleanse, X2, we got plenty of that, but that's our main seller. InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. And InfoWarsLife.com is a subgroup of InfoWarsStore.com where you got the Molon Labe, come and take it, belt buckles and T-shirts and ball caps and films and books, high-quality water filters, the best non-GMO seeds, the lowest prices. Go check it. I mean, we get in trouble sometimes with people that supply us. They go, hey, your contract says you can't sell for lower than this. Our other distributors are getting mad, and I go, hey, wait a minute. I added the proviso. I can have sales from time to time. I mean, we really are capitalist, folks. So you get a great deal. You support a hardcore organization that tells the truth. There's a platform for so many others that have come before us and are up-and-comers as well. InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or 888-253-3139. Now back to Doug Casey of CaseyResearch.com. Doug, look, you're a polite guy. You keep pausing for me to talk, but that's not good with somebody like me whose brain races like an insane ferret, hypomanic. You've got the floor. Talk about where you see the world going, what you personally are doing down in South America. I want to get into how the government is clamping down on financial freedoms. I want to get into the Putinization of energy and your view of Putin and what's happening. Doug Casey, you've got the floor.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Well, some years ago, some friends and I decided that it would be wise to diversify outside of the U.S. so that you have a backup system. There's a plan B. So we went to northwest Argentina, and we bought a lot of land. As a matter of fact, we bought about 200,000 acres of land down there. But on a small portion of that, outside of a town of 10,000 people, in the middle of a grape-growing region where we're surrounded by thousands and thousands of acres of vineyards, there's this little town of 10,000 people, and we built what we think is the best resort in the world on that land. We have our own grapes. We have an 18-hole golf course. I'm not old enough to play golf, but I know a lot of people like to play it. Unfortunately, I'm getting too old to play polo, which I played for years. And that may sound strange to some of your listeners that I'm recommending polo, but Winston Churchill said that a polo handicap is better than any passport. And he's absolutely right. Polo is the most fun you can have with your clothes on, quite frankly. And it's something that if you're in a position to teach your children or your grandchildren how to play that game, you're doing them a gigantic favor. Anyway, we have a polo field down there and offer polo lessons. We have
not just because it's fun, because it's an elite game, and that's how you can really get into some interesting circles.
That's exactly correct. But it's not a poofter game either. It's we call it horse hockey, and it's really playing hockey, which is a tough game, except you're doing it on horseback, which makes it even tougher. So it's a very martial arts type of a game. When it originated in Afghanistan, except there they play it with dead goats still.
Or with people's heads.
That's right. We use a stick and ball. It's lower cost and I think more fun. But anyway, that's one of the things we do down there, something that people can learn to do. We have a world-class gymnasium and every bell and whistle and toy that you can want. And interestingly, although most countries in the world, this will surprise a lot of people to hear this, although most countries in the world are now more expensive than the U.S., to get the same thing as you get here in the U.S., it'll cost you twice as much in Europe. But Argentina is one of the cheapest countries in the world, and the cost of living down there is probably about a third of what it is in the United States.
Tell folks about the resort if they want to look it up.
Well, it's called, they should go to La Est, L-A-E-S-T, stands for laestancia.com. So L-A-E-S-T, laest.com.
We'll put that on screen.
And yeah, and it'll explain what we're doing down there. It's a place with a fantastic climate year-round. The government totally leaves you alone. It's very unregulated, very free, and very mellow with very interesting, successful entrepreneurs. I mean, our people don't come down there because their cost of living is a third of what it is in the U.S. They come down there for the company and the culture and the weather. So I'd like to advise people to take a look. So that's one thing that I'm doing, and I spend half of the year down there at this point. I'm following my own advice because your biggest risk today is a political risk. So you have to diversify financially and personally to avoid that political risk that the U.S. government is
And for those that don't know, they are really trying to make it hard to get out of the country. The borders are wide open, but it's very hard to get your money or anything else out of the country, even after tax money. They're acting like, no, that belongs to them.
Well, that's absolutely correct. It used to be that there was no limits, no reporting, taking any amount of money out of the U.S. that you wanted to. If you had a foreign bank account, you didn't even have to report it in the old days. But now, most foreign banks and brokers won't even take your money if you're an American citizen because it's too risky and too costly for them. So, in effect, Americans are now trapped like lobsters here in the U.S. So, and it's getting tougher every day. So you've got to act now while the door is still open. And I'm urging people to do that because when things fall apart here in the U.S., the people who are going to be able to put it back together are the ones that have preserved capital from outside the U.S., and they'll be able to come back into the U.S.
That's right, because the big mega rich that are anti-free market, they admit they can't wait till the collapse happens because they're going to sell socialism as the answer and further wreck things under Cloward and Piven. I mean, there's got to be some way to try to stop them. Do you think there's any way to stop them, Doug?
The prognosis is not good. I suggest that charity begins at home, and the most important thing for every individual in this country
is take care of yourself.
Exactly. Because you can't take care of other people if you haven't first taken care of yourself. And the problem is that so many people that believe in the free market and libertarianism don't have the money, and they're not putting the theory into practice. And people that believe in capitalism and freedom, well, we should all be wealthy because wealth gives you power, and we're going to need power to get rid of the bad guys. So I want to see everybody become wealthy. I'd like to see people do intelligent things with their money in this very dangerous financial environment we're in so that they can weather the storm and come out the other side. Not just keeping what they have, but hopefully with more than they went into it.
And I know over at kcresearch.com, that's some of the advice you give. What are some of the basic strategies for folks out there that you would recommend?
Well, let's keep it simple. From an investment point of view, at this point, the stock market is meaningfully overpriced. It could go higher because with the trillions of new dollars that continue to be created, a lot of it's going to go into the stock market. Stock market could go higher, but it's risky, very risky. I don't recommend it. The bond market is a triple threat to your capital today. Interest rates are at all-time lows. Bonds are at all-time highs. If you own any, you should sell them tomorrow morning. That's not good. Real estate, well, at least it's real wealth, but real estate taxes are going up because it's time to tax to eat the rich, to tax the wealthy, and that means people that own real estate. Plus, the problem with real estate is that it floats on a sea of borrowed money, and when interest rates inevitably go up, that's not going to be good for real estate. So what are we left with? I've ruled out stocks, bonds, and real estate. So what can you do? Hold cash? You're getting zero interest rate, but inflation in real terms is running someplace between 5 and 8% per year, even now. I suggest that people build a significant position in physical gold and silver. Why? Because they've historically always been money, and they're the only financial assets that aren't simultaneously somebody else's liability. You can have it as real wealth in your hand, as international currency. So
and there were articles out just last week.
Every month.
Sure, just last week, I think it was in the London Guardian or the Telegraph, that there was a 240-something% increase in elites buying gold bars in just the last 6 months, while the very same elites tell the public don't get into gold and silver.
You're absolutely right, because in an unstable situation like we are right now, you don't want to be holding paper, especially the unsecured liabilities of the U.S. government, which is itself bankrupt at this point. So it boils down to buying gold and silver, the physical metals in your own possession. Going beyond that, you should diversify your assets internationally, so it's not all in one political bailiwick here in the U.S. The third thing, the third stool of tripod, if you would, is that they're going to create other bubbles. They've created a gigantic bond bubble we're in now. We're in a stock market bubble. The real estate bubble broke back in 2008. They're building another one. But the key is this, is that they're going to be creating other bubbles like that, and it's possible to take advantage of these bubbles.
Exactly. Invest in the bubble early.
Exactly correct. So there are situations out there. Some are only available for, let's say, sophisticated investors. Like, for instance, I would short Japanese bonds denominated in yen, because as bad as things are here in the U.S., they're actually going to be worse in Japan. So that's a possibility. An easier thing is mining stocks. Mining is a terrible business. I can explain why it's a terrible business, but mining stocks are very, very depressed right now. And eventually, when gold and silver explode upward in price out of both fear and greed, there's going to be a panic into these mining stocks, which have teeny-weeny market caps. All the mining stocks in the world are only worth about a quarter of what Apple alone is worth. To give you an idea of how small that market is.
Unbelievable. Stay there. Absolutely undervalued. No doubt about that. Plus, things have to be retooled from time to time, and they've just been, government's been suppressing mining, so it's got to make a comeback. We'll be right back. But look at these stories up at Infowars.com. Ukraine government officially introduces slavery with vague terms. And that's the same government that, of course, was financed by the West. But does that mean Putin's an angel? No, it just means there's a clash between different power blocks. Also, CIA admits to destroying Gary Webb's career with the country's largest newspapers. This is so important. I'm going to cover that in the next hour. FBI critics, tech giants, Apple and Google, for encrypting phones. So the FBI is criticizing them. Military to allow undocumented immigrants to serve. That's already been going on. They're now just announcing it. That's all up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. A lot of news in the next hour, some very important special reports, and your phone calls. I'll open the phones up at the bottom of the next hour. I'll have Mr. Casey with me 5 minutes in the next hour, CaseyResearch.com. I want to shift gears now because we're almost out of time with this short segment in the next. What are you getting at when you call it the Putinization of energy, and you say that it's a long-term strategy by Putin? What's your view of Putin and global power blocks?
Well, I'm not a supporter of any politicians anywhere. They're all out for themselves, and it's entirely possible that Putin is actually the richest man in the world at this point, with having taken control indirectly of Russian energy companies. He may be worth $80 billion. Now, all that being said, Putin is not a stupid man, and he is a thoughtful man. And the main thing that Russia has going for it today, well, there are other things. It's got a corporate income tax that maxes out at 13%, a personal income tax that maxes out at 10%. In some ways, shocking to say, Russia has become freer than the United States has. But all that said, energy is the big play in Russia today, and there's good reason to believe that they're going to become relatively stronger for that reason. Energy, the whole world runs on energy. The whole world runs on oil, and the Russians produce a lot of it. So, and internally, Russia is much more stable than any of these countries in the Middle East. What's happening today in the totally artificial countries of Syria and Iraq. I mean, those things were created out of whole cloth in the boardrooms of Europe, as was Jordan, for that matter, as was Israel. But Saudi Arabia itself is a gigantic accident waiting to happen. And I expect something on the order of the Islamic State to overthrow that corrupt Islamic theocracy. I mean, half of the people in Saudi Arabia are under 25 years old. Most of them are unemployed and unhappy. So the place is a gigantic time bomb. So Russia is in an excellent position to capitalize from the problems in the Middle East.
And so now the West is trying to checkmate, basically stealing their gas lines, which makes the West pirates.
Well, you know, this whole thing that's blowing up in the Ukraine, you've got to look at it the way a Martian would look at it. And
hold on, Doug. Doug, do 5 more minutes with us. We got to have you back up on a routine basis. Doug Casey read his books years ago, got invited to speak at this event. And we tried to get him on before, but we finally got right to him in person. And so here he is. We'll be back. I'm Alex Jones. Third hour coming up. Final segment with Doug Casey of Casey Research, CaseyResearch.com. We were getting into the Putinization of energy, what he thinks Putin's strategy is. And he ended up saying, you have to look at things going on in the world like a Martian would. And I agree, politically, being an atheist, not what you want to believe, but what's really going on. So what is the strategy arming al-Qaeda, calling it ISIS to destabilize the Middle East? Well, that actually helps Russia in a way, but I guess overthrowing Syria, they think won't, to cut off their port to the Mediterranean, overthrow Ukraine, move NATO up to their borders, try to grab their gas pipelines and give it to Joe Biden's son, which they've done. Doug Casey, you were saying we have to look at this like a Martian.
Well, yes. As far as this thing in the Ukraine is concerned, the Ukraine, again, is an artificial country. Its borders have been liquid for hundreds of years. So it makes all the sense in the world that these two provinces, Donetsk and Lugansk, should become independent countries to create a borderland between Russia and the NATO powers. And I've got to say also that NATO is something that should have been disbanded when the Soviet Union fell apart. At this point, NATO is nothing but a provocation to the rest of the world. And it's really nothing but a giant bureaucracy that's going around looking for a fight. So as I look at the Ukraine situation, being as objective as I can, and speaking as an American, I've got to say, I come down on Putin's side of this thing.
Because as a Martian looking at it, this area they've gone into has the Russian infrastructure. They've been there for hundreds of years. George Soros admits they overthrew Ukraine. Unelected government came in and attacked. I mean, you'd have to be a fascist to not side with the Russians. Right, exactly. And I've got to point out that the Russians aren't communists anymore. There are more communists in American universities than there are in Russia at this point. A lot of these people kind of learned their lesson after 70 years of the Soviet Union. They don't want any more of that nonsense. Most of the communists are here in the U.S. It's perverse. Yeah, sitting around on all the free market wealth they've pissed away, lecturing anyone that... I tell you, why do socialists want to destroy wealth? They have no idea. Like locusts, they destroy every country they run. Well, it's a psychological aberration. From an intellectual point of view, there's no argument that makes any sense for the defense of socialism. It's a psychological problem, not an intellectual problem. That's what we're dealing with. And socialists suffer from a spiritual disease that I would call envy. And envy says, I have what you want, but it's not good enough that I get it. I want to take it away from you so you can't have it either. It's a horrible, ugly psychological... Well, you know they've got studies in England and Canada showing that socialists are 6 times more likely to steal and lie. They're really just pirate criminals that hate everybody and don't know how to do anything. Yes, it's amazing that people use the word socialism and they
treat it like a legitimate political system. It's really just the legalization of theft and barbarism. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, it's a gang of nobodies getting together to go rob other people. So Michael Savage calls it a mental illness, and that's what it is.
Yeah, it is. It's a bunch of nothing nobodies who are incapable of producing anything on their own and like to use the state as a method to steal things legally. And the average person out there just rolls over like a whipped dog and wets himself and accepts this.
I know you're only in the U.S. another few weeks, Doug. Promise to come back on for another hour before you leave to talk about socialism itself.
I'm looking forward to talking to you, Alex.
You bet. We'll talk Sunday. I'll call you. I'll say bye to you here during the break. We're going to come back with Leanne McAdoo's excellent report from last night on Eric Holder. Then we have more on it after that, and then your phone calls. That was Doug Casey, CaseyResearch.com. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com.
Eric Holder has announced his resignation as the U.S. Attorney General today. It's a position that he's held for the last 6 years. So in honor of this big announcement, we bring you the accomplishments of the Holder DOJ. Now, a lot of people have accused Holder of being the most highly politicized Attorney General. He came into the game with an agenda.
Every day, some kind of anti-violence, anti-gun message. Every day, every school, at every level. One thing that I think is clear with young people and with adults as well is that we just have to be repetitive about this. It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
So, of course, it's no surprise that Holder was later tied to the Oklahoma City bombings, an event that prompted several federal legislative gun control provisions, even though there was never a single gun involved. A similar allegation stands out in the Fast and Furious scandal, which was a covert DOJ mission labeled a criminal false flag by Ron Paul. With the full knowledge of the Department of Justice, ATF agents facilitated the sale of thousands of illegal guns to Mexican drug cartels and then dropped all surveillance of those weapons once they crossed the border. Those weapons showed up at multiple crime scenes in Mexico and at the murder scene of U.S. Border Patrol agent Brian Terry.
When were you first told or became knowledgeable about U.S. officials allowing firearms to be sold to the drug cartels in Mexico?
I don't know.
When was anyone in the White House first informed about the tactics that were used under Operation Fast and Furious?
Again, Mr. Chairman, I don't know. 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 That I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know whether or not. I don't know when the subpoena was issued. Well, I don't know precisely. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the specific questions. Now, again, I don't know what happened.
This is the guy caught perjuring himself, and the memo CBS released last week show that they said they were going to blame the guns in Mexico on the Second Amendment. Is that not a form of false flag against our most basic of rights, sir? And what would you do, if president, to people like Eric Holder?
Well, he should be immediately fired, and then there should be an investigation and find out if charges should be made. And that's obviously over the top. And all these kind of sting operations and false flag, this is criminal. I don't know whether charges will be made, but he deserves to have charges, up against him.
In 2012, the House of Representatives voted to hold Holder in contempt after he refused to turn over documents related to the botched gun running scandal. And as recently as yesterday, Holder has been accused of purposely stonewalling all efforts by members of Congress to look into Fast and Furious. Now, Department of Justice senior officials have on many occasions barred or delayed inspector generals from gaining access to documents that were crucial to their investigations, including the AP wiretapping scandal. Now, the Department of Justice illegally seized phone records of reporters and editors of the Associated Press, including their home phones and cell phones, and also those of Fox News reporter James Rosen.
With regard to the potential prosecution of the press for the disclosure of material, that is not something that I've ever been involved with, heard of, or would think would be a wise policy. In fact,
So did Holder lie under oath again? It was revealed that he personally signed off on the 44-page warrant that gave the department access to Rosen's email account. When it was revealed last year that the IRS purposely targeted conservative groups who were applying for tax breaks, IRS Director Lois Lerner twice pled the fifth. She conveniently suffered a hard drive crash. A Justice Department official in charge of election crimes refused to testify about his role in the IRS scandal. And then, oops, the emails of 5 other staff members involved in the investigation were also lost. And it has since been revealed that the IRS began destroying evidence as soon as the investigation into the targeting began. House Oversight Committee Chairman Darrell Issa subpoenaed Eric Holder, accusing the Department of Justice once again of stonewalling investigations by failing to produce relevant material. And the lead investigator who's been appointed to look into the IRS's political targeting of Obama's enemies happens to be a partisan Democrat who has donated more than $6,000 to President Obama and Democrat causes. Now, Ted Cruz is calling for Holder's impeachment after the Attorney General has rejected the call for an independent prosecutor to probe the IRS's targeting of conservative groups. And that's not the only time that the Attorney General has refused to enforce the law in order to protect this administration. When rampant fraud and corruption was exposed at Veterans Affairs, Attorney General Eric Holder announced the Department of Justice had no plans to investigate. And Holder protected another key player in the Fast and Furious scandal, the international banks. Banks which Holder has time and again refused to prosecute.
If you do prosecute, if you do bring a criminal charge, it will have a negative impact on the national economy, perhaps even the world economy. And I think that is a function of the fact that some of these institutions have become too large.
Eric Holder, these are your accomplishments. You've managed to slow walk all of the big scandals affecting this administration, saving the responsibility for a future DOJ appointee to investigate under a future administration. Now, unfortunately, you didn't manage to grab the guns, but you did manage to further degrade trust in the office of the Attorney General. And for that, we salute you.
Well, either you know or you don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
All right, that's the type of information we put out every night, 7 o'clock Central, InfoWars Nightly News every weeknight. Of course, I'll be back with the Sunday show with Paul Watson, 4 to 6 p.m. Central this Sunday. Now, Leanne's just reading the headlines there and then giving her own analysis. She did a great job, but it's not alleged that they shipped the guns into Mexico to blame the Second Amendment. CBS News got the actual memos. And there is definitely a stonewalling that's going on. And the good news is that 2 different federal courts have ruled that Holder has to release the documents concerning Fast and Furious. But Darren McBreen put a report out, it had to be 2 years ago when all this was really big news. We got to dig that report up and air it again, where it showed them talking about Fast and Furious, Gunwalker, a year before it even broke, saying, we have a gun tracking program, we're doing this to track guns. And later they said, we never knew about it, wasn't happening. When you have the Attorney General and Big Sis, the head of Homeland Security, on a stage saying it. So none of this is alleged, even though the mainstream media keeps saying it's alleged, it's alleged. It's not alleged. The sun came up this morning. So you can go into the CBS reports on that. And, of course, the reporter that ended up putting all that out got driven out of CBS News. So that's what's happening here, is a war on journalists. And I want to finish up with this, go to break, get some other news, and take your phone calls. But I spent a lot of time on this in the first hour. In fact, there's the headline they found at CBS News. Documents, ATF used Fast and Furious to make the case for gun regulations. See? And that was the reason they were doing it. They told field agents, look, just let us do it. It's for a greater good. And you heard Holder earlier to Congress say, well, we can't prosecute big banks that have stolen hundreds of billions of dollars and engaged in all this crime and money laundered and drug deal, because that would discredit the whole system. And there is the institutional Machiavellian argument of, we're really good guys, but if we expose our government's running al-Qaeda and bare minimum allowed 9/11 to happen, that'll bring down the system. I saw a National Post article in Canada. It's one of Canada's national paper a few years ago. They were interviewing a professor about 9/11 being an inside job, and they said, well, even if it is, we don't want to go there because we want to run the government, and this will discredit the government. So it's like a ring of Mordor. They're all fighting over, and they all want it. They're like, no, 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 don't throw it in the lava. I want to use it. It cannot be used for good. And so remember that next time they pull somebody over and they have no criminal record, and the cop claims they think the gun's illegal in the vehicle because state laws are written both ways. And they take some old man to jail who's clearly not a criminal. Remember, they're throwing the book at citizens. Remember the sheriff in Liberty County, Florida? They pulled over a construction company owner who was carrying cash. And the state law was written, well, you could have a handgun loaded legally if you're carrying cash or going to or from work or whatever. But it could also be seen as illegal, so we're going to choose to throw you in jail. And the sheriff shows up, goes in, the guy has no criminal record. He owns a company. He was carrying cash. This law is written but two-sided. Let him go. And then they indicted the sheriff, who we've had on as a guest. See, that's when you know the government's evil, folks, is that the state with a Republican leader came after that conservative sheriff because he said, I'm not going to fill our jails up with legal gun owners. And they're like, well, the way it's written, though, we could still maybe jail him. See, it just makes me want to throw up, physically want to throw up. But now the CIA has declassified that they indeed targeted and smeared through the LA Times and others Gary Webb because he was, quote, endangering the whole agency, exposing their narcotics trafficking operation. That story's up on Infowars.com. That integrates in with Kurt Nemo's article dealing with Glenn Greenwald, new NSA documents, and NBC News, how they target basically any journalist. I mean, you're a journalist that reports on an oil spill, CIA's coming with the FBI. You report on a corrupt school, FBI's coming. It's just default. You're a good person. You're fighting corruption. They're coming. I mean, it is unbelievable. It's just a system to protect evil. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. And again, I'm your host, Alex Jones, if you just tuned in for the first time. You know, I've just got to get through these news headlines. Let me just read some of these. Some of them I've got to, a lot of them I haven't. London Telegraph. Argentina uses drones to root out wealthy tax evaders. From swimming pools to farms. Of course, you didn't hear that here a decade ago. Pentagon set to deliver millions more in military gear to 12 colleges, and high schools are even getting the MRAPs. USDA to approve more pesticide-laden GE crops that actually grow their own pesticides that kill bugs that eat it. Wow, pesticide included. That can't be bad for humans, though. Government loves me, right? World Health Organization advocates blood therapies in search of Ebola treatment. Therapy used in 1995 to treat 8 Ebola patients. The Democratic Republic of Congo shows some promise. Local school district got military gear from Pentagon. See, I just mentioned this, but now I ran across the story. Here it is, CBS News. You know, nothing like armored vehicles for the school district because we're such a free country. Everything's fine, though. The government's just committing crime on the books across the board with parallel construction, NSA, stingrays, narcotics trafficking, just everything. Savaging the press, trying to intimidate the media for the full takeover. Kill switches going in all the internet systems. I mean, it's just a massive buildup against us. Not to sustain the country, but to implode it. So enjoy. Just you were warned. Continuing here with the news. This is really a big one. Republican Congress members urge military officers to rebel against Obozo. Lawmakers want officers to resign in a blaze of glory in opposition to White House's Middle East policy. Republican members of Congress are urging them to do this, according to U.S. Representative Doug Lamborn of Colorado. During a Liberty Group forum Wednesday night in the basement of Colorado Springs Bar, Lamborn, a member of the House Armed Services Committee, answered a question from a member of the audience who urged members of the Congress to support the troops in the absence of leadership from the White House. Oh, there's leadership in the White House to destroy the country. And the congressman got into the fact that they are encouraging him to do that. According to Corey Hitchens, who attended the meeting, Lambert responded by remarking, "You know what, I've been adding that to that, but let me reassure you of this. A lot of us are talking to the generals behind the scenes and saying, hey, if you disagree with the policy that the White House has given you, let's have a resignation." It's not just that I believe this article. I already have talked to generals, and I've talked to colonels, some of them on the air, who have been at these meetings where this is being said, where they're all saying, what do? We think it's a bad idea to give ISIS weapons. We agree with Rand Paul, Senator Paul, and they're told, well, go ahead and resign then. And then you can tell people why you resigned. You know, let's have a public resignation, the congressman said, and state your protest and go out in a blaze of glory, Lambert added, and I haven't seen that very much. In fact, I haven't seen that at all in years. So he says they're talking about that right now. Pretty interesting article from last night, Infowars.com. Continuing another article here that dovetails with Leanne's excellent report earlier by Mikhail Thalen, the crimes of Eric Holder. Holder resigns after years of lawlessness. Fast and Furious. We break that down. Too big to jail. Mega banks. Attack on whistleblowers in the press. And his report details that. Very important. And again, 2 judges have ruled he's got to release documents that he's been covering up. Meanwhile, Mayor Bloomberg is in Washington Times. Bloomberg says he can't find enough anti-gun candidates to support. He's trying to finance. He found one in Austin. Mayor Pro Tem Mike Martinez says he wants to register and then have full confiscation, including door-to-door. And Austin will probably elect him mayor. Because let me tell you, the people that run Austin, the trendies, would bash their children's brains out with a ball-peen hammer if they were told it was trendy. Bloomberg can't find enough anti-gun candidates. Every town for gun safety midterm election endorsements lists heavy on safe Democrats. And we've got news on Kim Jong-un that's pretty darn important. Straight ahead. I want to go to your phone calls, but I do have some more news I want to hit on the Second Amendment front. Reuters is reporting a tragedy. 4 children stabbed to death in southern China. Latest in series of knife attacks that have unnerved the country. Well, I'm sure if they just ban knives, that'll stop it. It's the knife's fault. The knife's making them do it. Japan has had a spat of that, more than a spat. What's something if it's a spat that happens over and over again? Remember some story in Japan years ago where a guy killed like 10 kids and wounded like 30 or something with a butcher knife? Well, England's answer to that is, since their crime rates exploded after they took guns, muggings and stabbings is like up like tenfold. You can look the numbers up yourself. It is to try to ban knives. Yes, as if criminals can't get knives or can't go make a knife. Baseball bats. I mean, just ban everything. Make the public totally domesticated so the criminals can feed on them. A man stabbed 4 primary school children to death. To death. He's not demonically possessed or anything. It's the fault of the knife. Today, in the southern Chinese region of Guangzhou, is that right? State media said the latest in a series of knife attacks that have unnerved the country. In a separate incident, 6 people were killed in a stampede in the primary school, the capital of the southwestern province of Yunnan, state news agency reported. It did not give details. Well, it's obviously got to be America's fault. So let's just blame John Wayne. He did it. And that's the way it is. So there you have it. The guns are banned for the citizens, but they have just massive state tyranny. Dozens of mobile execution vans per city. Public executions, mass stabbings, lootings, burnings, killings. I mean, China is just a time bomb. I saw some number like 7,000 riots a year. But logic here, why doesn't Bloomberg go over there and start a group to ban the knives? It's the knife's fault. Where is a Mike Martinez when you need him? Make Mike Martinez the dictator of China. And then he can you imagine being, like this is nationwide and worldwide, but imagine having a mayor pro tem that says on TV, once we register, I want to confiscate your guns, when the fat pig has police bodyguards. And I bet money owns guns. Yeah, how China stays stable despite 500 protests every day. Think the Chinese people like their mobile execution vans and their suicide nets? So there's that little tidbit. D.C., we actually have a clip of this. D.C. City Council members decry having to follow Constitution. It's been almost 6 years since D.C. Heller, the Supreme Court case, 5.5 years, and neither D.C. nor Chicago have allowed the concealed carry that you got to jump through all these hoops for. So now the D.C. Council member, let's scroll down and see him, David Grosso, who looks like another trendy know-it-all parasite up there with all these delusional idiots that couldn't even fight their way out of a paper bag or run a shoe shine shop. I mean, I'm telling you. But they know how to wear suits and sit up there at the dais, and I don't believe they're going to make us let them have guns. It's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible you got one of the highest crime rates in the country and that all the government people have bodyguards and waivers and have guns, but everybody else has to be fed on. You have one of the most corrupt police forces in history on record that goes around in wrecker trucks stealing people's legal cars and running chop shops. I mean, D.C. is a joke. Let's go ahead and go to this dirtbag's quote.
Huge change of course for a city known for its strict gun laws. About an hour ago, the D.C. City Council voted to allow licensed gun owners to apply for a concealed carry permit. News 4's Mark Seagraves live outside the Wilson Building now with more on the implications of this vote today. Mark?
That's right, Jim, and the reason we're here today is because a federal judge weeks ago struck down the district's ban on carry permits, saying it was unconstitutional, and then today we learned that U.S. Attorney's Office is no longer prosecuting handgun carry violations until this is all resolved. So the council knew they had to do something. This is not what they wanted to do. The D.C. Council reluctantly voted to allow for residents and non-residents to apply for concealed carry permits.
This is always a difficult situation for the District of Columbia when we are put here. We'd like to have much stricter no carry rules at all and preferably no guns at all, but the courts are ruling against us on this on a regular basis, and if they're not, then the Congress is coming down on us.
While the council unanimously approved allowing for carry permits, one issue facing lawmakers that wasn't resolved today is the question whether the names of those who are issued a concealed carry permit should be made public. On that issue, the council members are divided.
We should at least give our neighbors and the residents a chance.
You know how many hours a day he spends on his hair?
Let people, be proud of it if they want to carry a concealed weapon, but at least we'll all know who it is and we can treat them differently because they have a deadly threat in their possession.
I'm uneasy about that. It runs the risk that we're providing a means for somebody to find out who has a gun that then burglarize or rob.
Who cares about the confidentiality of a gun owner? We don't want it.
While the issue of gun owners' privacy remains up in the air, one thing is clear. Gun rights advocates still aren't satisfied, saying the new law is still too restrictive.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't live in a country where rights are enjoyed only at the police's pleasure. The court instructed the city to treat the carrying of handguns for self-defense as a right. The city should comply with, not resist, the court's decision, wrote Alan Gura, a lawyer for the plaintiffs.
Oh, that's enough.
Tells News 4. He plans to...
By the way, they got the former mayor of D.C., I guess is still in the council, that showed him creeping along behind the back. I mean, what a group of ne'er-do-wells. What a group of just pathetic people. She's in there with armed guards protecting her and police security at her house, the city councilwoman. It's on record they've all got security in D.C. at taxpayer expense. And going, who cares about privacy of gun owners? I don't like it. Just the belligerence, because this is what Bloomberg does. And what Cuomo does, another sack of horse manure. I'm sorry, that's what he is. They go and they get the names of concealed carry people and they publish it like you're a sex offender. And then people's houses do get robbed when you do that. Hey, we're going to put it in the newspaper and online, who's got guns, as a pure form of harassment. You shouldn't have to get a concealed carry. You shouldn't have to get anything. Criminals should be able to carry guns. Up until 1968, criminals could go buy a gun the day they got out of prison. And this country had a lot lower crime rate when it came to shootings and things like that. Because a criminal's going to have a gun anyways. Any law will only be used on law-abiding citizens, and that's been proven. And their goal, these political mafias, is to disarm their slaves, the bitter clingers. It is a fundamental of a statist, authoritarian system to disarm the people. As Mao Zedong said, the greatest mass murder in history, political power goes out of the barrel of a gun. And when you see the belligerence and the arrogance of most of those city council members, and the little fuddy-duddy with his hair all greased back and into himself with his trendy, you know, I'm not against beards. It's just, it's the guys that like have them, and then they're always the same, and they just think they're wonderful, and it's like they have the Holy Grail, and he's got his little manicured beard and everything, and you know he watches The Hangover every night, and he's sitting there talking about how horrible it is with his Nelly eyes, like a deer in the headlight, wanting to prey on people, wanting his slaves to be disarmed, while he has bodyguards, cops in that room that are armed. It's just the height of pathetic hypocrisy, and I can't handle it. And then let's go to the walrus woman, who, if you can find that, who says that, I don't think they should have any privacy. I don't like it. We're going to publish your names.
Or Rob.
Who cares about the confidentiality of a gun owner? We don't want it.
What's her name? Back it up. What's her name? Yvette Alexander. D.C. council member, Ward 7. Yeah, she's over Mental Ward 7. I mean, let me tell you, I've been in D.C. a lot. It's a open sore. It's a hellhole with gunshots going off at night. Just like Chicago, in the areas where you socialists run things. Chicago's a great city, too. I hate to see you run it down into a rat hole. But that's what rats do. Yvette Alexander. Well, we're going to put your name out there, cutesy cake. You know what? Wait a minute. You know, that's the wrong site, man. You're on the Groundhog official Puxatawny Phil. That's not her. That's a photo of a groundhog that just got pulled out of a hole. Guys, you know, I actually go to the D.C. council members' website, not to a groundhog website. Like, look at that video down there. That's a groundhog. Look at it. Oh, my gosh. Look how little that woman's head is compared to her body. Ho, ho, ho. Teeny Jedi. Actually, is that Jabba's palace?
That's Punxsutawney's darkest secret.
That's Punxsutawney's darkest secret, is that he is secretly a D.C. council person. And the other guy looks like a giant woodchuck or something. Maybe there really are, like, space aliens that have come to invade. This is how they're just, trendy, we love you, turn your weapons in. All right, I'm not trying to be funny. I just can't handle it anymore. Russ in the Czech Republic. Russ, good to have you on today.
Alex, good to hear from you. Thank you, first of all, for the awakening you've given me, or you've been part of my awakening in the last year, but I've kind of woken up to a lot of this stuff.
Well, we're all in this together, brother, so thank you.
The item I wanted to address with you was the financial markets, and I think what you were saying yesterday, and I listened to the podcast, is absolutely right. I believe the term you use is New World Order. I have my own pet term for it, which I call a parasite guild, or the cabal. No, I agree. It's the parasite college of control freak world for those that couldn't actually do for themselves, who wish to conquer the planet in all of their great grandeur. Go ahead. Well, they're out in force. I think they came out in force with last May or June. First was Lloyd Blankenfein with Goldman Sachs. He goes on the Pet Network, which is CNBC, and really psychopathic snake type stuff. And then he's followed up by Greenspan. They followed up with the Bank of International Settlements, which essentially the Rothschild banks have been really issuing thinly veiled threats. And then last week you had the G20. So it's not like they're not warning people that they're going to pull the plug. And I think it's part of it is psychopathic gloating that they like to engage in. And then there's a good term that you've given me, predictive programming. I think that's part of it. Revelation of the method, externalization of the hierarchy. And then they can also tell you later, see, I told you it was coming. Exactly. Butt covering and being part of the problem reaction solution. So I really see this watching financial news. I used to be on Wall Street, spent a half life on Wall Street, and I have to tell you that the whole money management business has been badly compromised. It seems like everybody's bribed and controlled, and I used to be in that business. And when I was in that business, we had such a thing called fiduciary responsibility. And I didn't take orders from anybody when I was a money manager. And now the scuttlebutt I hear is this total control. They've stolen Aunt Millie's money, and I worry for Aunt Millie, the people that have their money placed with Wall Street and with these money managers, and I don't think the outcome is going to be good. It feels also that this is concurrent with a lot of these false flags that you've been talking about. So the whole predictive programming, the gloating, the butt covering, and this show they put on, it seems like it's almost kind of concurrent with false flag warnings as well.
It's definitely the season of crises. They've already turned Al-Qaeda loose. They're already attacking Russia. They're already just poking the Chinese, the Chinese government's terrible, but I mean, still they're poking them. It's just a lot of bravado, chutzpah-driven, just wild man behavior going on by the establishment. And so I just hope that cooler heads can prevail somehow and that some good things can happen and we can kind of get this corruption under control. But I don't know, my friend. Great points. Thank you so much, Russ, from the Czech Republic. Jesse in Oregon, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hey, Alex. Great to be on with you today.
Thanks for calling.
Hey, I was wanting to bring up something that's really important for us here in Oregon coming up this election. And myself being a chef-only organic restaurant in the Dalles, Oregon, we're coming up on Measure 92, voting to label GMO here in Oregon. And I hadn't heard you talk about that yet, so I just wanted to put out to your audience.
Well, I know that they clearly rigged the election in California. I mean, why can't you have GMO labeled?
I don't know. I mean, you'd think if they were proud of it, they'd want the label.
Yeah, I mean, this corn, bugs don't eat it because it's got biologically grown, pharmacological crop pesticide. And, and there's nothing like liver failure. Why not advertise it?
Yeah, you should. If you're making a great product, be proud of it. That's what I do. I make a great product every day.
That sounds a little bit terrorist, to actually want to know what's in your food. Yeah. How dare you?
So, have all, everybody kind of, we got tons of money from out of state, big corporations and mega corporations pumping in money into the state to say no on 92. And we want yes on 92. We want our stuff labeled. And
well, how dare you want to know if something's GMO? I think that's terrible. And I think it's good that they, are firing people off TV like Rob Schneider, who speaks out and says America's becoming fascist. Of course we're fascist. And you're fired. And you're fired too, caller. Get out of here, Jesse. How dare you? How dare you? You worship... Oh, I mentioned Kim Jong-un. I'm going to go to break and come back with more of your calls. This story illustrates a lot. That Kim Jong-un is 31. He grew up in Switzerland and is so disconnected, he thinks getting a mega nerd, basketball washed-up player who's been hated for a decade to come there is really cool. But people think money and power is about everything. Actually, all the evil comes back on you. He hasn't been seen for months, and now they admit in state-run media that he has discomfort and is ill. So see, all of you that sell out for petty power and narcissism, this is what you end up producing. A 31-year-old literal tick who I bet's dead in 5 years. Totally unhealthy, totally unhappy. You can look in that guy's eyes and all of them. The leadership looks more freaked out than the starving peasants. Living under that, oh, but look at the red carpet, and it's fancy. The government's invincible. It's big and powerful. No, it's not. There's government worship there for you. All the Democrats and Republicans, you should worship Kim Jong-un. He's an example of what you believe in. Briefly, we did get a limited amount of DNA Force in. We're going to get more in the next week or two. If you want to get it and support the broadcast and your own body's health, this has the astrologus root, the bio-enhanced trans resveratrol, the NAR, lipoic acid, P40P, trademark, patented, pomegranate extract. A bunch of other just incredible stuff is in here. The Q10, the CoQ10, the Zagenzyme, digestive synthetic enzyme, Bio-PQQ, that's the really expensive stuff, and just a bunch of other things that are known to absolutely detoxify, supercharge, regenerate, helps the mitochondria, the DNA. And you notice we don't say this with other products because you can't. With this stuff being patented and certified, it's a nutraceutical, we can. InfoWarsLife.com. Similar formulas that aren't even as strong are $300 to $600. This is a Rolls Royce of supplements, and it helps fund our operation. InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. In fact, here's some of the things about DNA Force. Our cells are under daily attack by GMOs, radiation, toxins, microwaves. DNA is your blueprint. This is the most amazing product yet from InfoWars Health line. Exclusive formula based on Nobel Prize-winning scientific discovery, designed by top scientists with mathematically synergistic combinations. Incredible effort to produce, highest quality, difficult to procure, to cultivate, very complicated to manufactured at the highest standards, supports healthy cellular function, contains specific minerals, cofactors, and enzymes essential for powering cells. Give your body the force field it needs. Power your potential. Optimize your powerhouse, your cells, to fight back against the toxic environment. InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. And be sure and support our local AM and FM affiliates as well. Get a bottle of X2, Survival Shield, Nascent Iodine, to see what that does for you. The Fluoride Shield, the Super Male Vitality, the Super Female Vitality. Just try it. And I know you'll become a repeat customer and help fund our operation and get a great quality product that helps you and your family, because this stuff is all the highest quality. No games here, InfoWarsLife.com. Mary in Texas, go ahead. You're on the air.
I love InfoWars, all you guys up there, Rob, Richard, Ricardo. I appreciate all the work y'all do.
Well, thank you. Talk right in your telephone for me.
I'm running for mayor in Austin as a 9/11 truther. I'm pro-gun, pro-weed, and pro-trees. And we also want to talk about a meth problem. We've been having meth flood the streets, especially at the spillway, and that's why the cop patrol was up over the last month or two.
Yeah, there's drugs just pouring in everywhere. The government usually isn't too involved in meth. It's mainly cocaine, heroin, stuff they can geographically control. But what's your name? And Mary, so people can check into your campaign.
Mary Krennick, I'm first on the list. I did a lot of work with Vote Rescue here in town, and one of my main issues is electronic election fraud.
Oh, yeah, I recognize your voice. I think I've met you before, Mary.
Definitely. I just love you guys' show.
Well, send us some info. Send us some info. I'm going to do a little bit of overdrive to finish up with calls. Will, Floyd, Joe, and Shaggy. Infowars.com/show to find the free feeds. Back this Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m.
GCNlive.com today.
Don't take the show for granted, folks. They want to shut it off. All right, a little bit of overdrive to finish some of your calls, but a jam-packed Friday transmission. I want to say great job to the crew. Will in North Carolina, you're on the air.
Yeah, hey, I had an idea for a story that would be kind of good. It might not necessarily be a drudge-making blockbuster, but I was monitoring some propaganda media, watching an episode of 60 Minutes, and they had this piece on. This was this past, Sunday, I guess. And they had this piece on, and basically they did a massive tutorial on how to commit massive identity theft. They gave the best methods to use.
Oh, yeah, and then they allow the illegals to do it, and it's always big banks and government that are releasing 20 million, 50 million, 5 million names and IDs. Then their answer is biometric access, biometric world ID to fix the problem they've helped create.
Well, that's absolutely true, but it was amazing. And then they said, yeah, here's what you do. You get your you go to the grocery store and buy your paid Visa or MasterCard cash cards, and you have the money sent from this website. And they broke it down like it was a tutorial, so it'd make a good story. Like CBS gives massive tutorial on how to commit fraud, or something.
Yeah, CBS does workshop on identity theft.
Yeah, I think that'd make a good story. You guys should really roll with that.
What was the name of the 60 Minutes piece?
You know, I don't remember the name of it, but it aired this past week. And it was
there's no doubt the government finances and runs the identity theft and brings in the illegals and everything and then throws the book at citizens. It's just a joke. When you comply, you're a chump now. And I've always been somebody that's law and order, but when the government's run by criminals, complying with it is like doing what Hitler said. I'm just not doing it anymore. You know, when it comes to like all their, I mean, really, they'll already comply with everything anyways. There's nothing for me to buck up against. It's just that if I want to buy Amish raw milk, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to Amish that don't follow the so-called rules because the FDA is a joke. Appreciate your call, Will. Floyd in Ohio, you're on the air. Welcome.
Good to talk to you, Alex. Twitter handle is Shepherd of Fire. Long-time fan, brother.
Well, thanks for calling in, buddy. What's on your mind?
Well, there's several things I'm going to try to link together as fastly as I can. First thing up on True News, 54-year-old woman beheaded at a company in Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's Fox News, CNN. We talked about it earlier this morning. We don't know if it was Islamically connected or whether he was just crazy, but yeah, that report's on InfoWars.
Well, the point that I was trying to make behind this is also when that column that you talked about was coming in and they could have just wiped ISIS completely out, okay? There's just tons and tons of pictures, and I've had to post some of them, of little children with their heads chopped off.
Well, why are you being racist? That's liberal and trendy.
Right. And what I'm trying to drive home behind this is the American people need to realize that this is their taxpayer dollars. Rand Paul, 600 tons of weapons given to these guys by Obama. If you do not stand up and say something, you are literally complicit in mass murder.
Well, I agree, and that's why they're in deep trouble, is the military, the brass knows that, I mean, this is even too much for them, that our government gave them the weapons, the so-called bombing of them was only a cover. That's why they're bombing a subgroup. This is to take down Assad, a replay of what happened last year. And I don't think they're getting away with it. And now the Attorney General's resigning. I think you're going to see a lot more resignations. Evil is not invincible, and a lot of people are seeing through it. There's a lot of people in the government that have done bad things, but they did it because they were compartmentalized. Now stuff's getting so clear, people are having to come to Jesus. Saul on the road to, Tarsus, getting knocked off his horse. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time. I'll see you back this Sunday, Lord willing, 4 to 6 p.m. with Paul Watson in studio from England. And then we got the Nightly News tonight with our intrepid crew, 7 o'clock Central.